resignation.
Heavy rain and strong winds under a number 3 typhoon warning signal failed to deter them from staging a massive outpouring of public discontent. ATV's Emily Sue was there.
In the heat, humidity and rain with a typhoon warning signal in force, they took off from their rally point at Victoria Park in their tens of thousands this afternoon. A sea of umbrellas filled their designated route from Causeway Bay to Central as the marchers put on a show of solidarity to defy the weather and the government. The July 1st rally attracts people with all kinds of grievances against the government, such as the shortage of housing. But this year in particular, the focus was on demands for universal suffrage and for Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying to step down.
Actually, I'm not really worried about the weather. Hong Kong people have been fighting for democracy and universal suffrage for more than 30 years. That if Hong Kong people come up on the street under the stormy weather, that it shows our determination to fight for universal suffrage and to ask CY Leung to step down from the government immediately.
We're sick and tired of waiting for him to deliver on universal suffrage. Even today, he shows no inclination of starting the consultation process. He seems strangely detached from political realities and completely oblivious to public criticisms of his performance and the performance of his team.
They came from all walks of life to join the rally.
You know, there's a lot of social discontent in Hong Kong right now. A lot of people are fed up with all these issues and problems ranging from mainland Chinese people coming here and taking our resources to housing, to finding a job, and all this kind of social problem.
It's actually because we have a lot of unhappiness with the government, and I think that the government is not very capable in solving a lot of problems in Hong Kong, so we just come here today.
At one point outside the Sogo department store in Causeway Bay, scuffles broke out as people wanting to join the rally tried to break through police barricades and cut across the road, separating them from the marchers. Officers said they had to be stopped to avoid traffic chaos at the busy junction, but some of them managed to force their way through. Police denied trying to deliberately block people from taking part in the rally. The big march ended at Chater Garden, where organizers of the Occupy Central campaign were ready to give authorities a taste of what it would be like if they go ahead with their plan to blockade Hong Kong's business district next year. The July 1st rally usually ends at government headquarters, but this year, pro-establishment forces put on a carnival at Tamar to counter the mass protest. They also got more than 1,000 shops and restaurants to offer discounts from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. But
it won't affect the turnout because, as I will say, that the Hong Kong people have very clear determination for universal suffrage, and naturally there are no discount for our universal suffrage.
this year, more than ever before, pro-democracy forces have been up against well-organized efforts by the pro-establishment camp to counter the impact of their annual mass rally. So here they are with a typhoon warning over their heads, marching in a show of defiance to the chief executive and his bosses in Beijing. Emily Sue, ATV News.
A top mainland official says the July 1st rally clearly demonstrates the high level of freedom people here enjoy under the one country, two systems principle.
And Chief Secretary Carrie Lam said the government will continue to listen to the demands of the people. Mainland officials, at least in public, usually ignore the July 1st rallies. But the head of Beijing's liaison office, Jiang Xiaoming, put a positive spin on today's mass protest. He said the fact that so many people took part in the protest today showed that Hong Kong has full democracy and rights as promised under the one country, two systems principle. Jiang added that people were also free to join pro-government events. But former Chief Secretary Anson Chan, who joined the rally, disagreed with Jiang's upbeat remarks.
We also want, as part of today's march, to ask Beijing and the SAR government to faithfully implement one country, two systems. In recent years, we've seen a steady erosion of one country, two systems, contrary to the basic law.
Liu Monghong, the former ally turned critic of the chief executive, said Leung Chun-ying had made lots of promises but failed to deliver them on a number of occasions, and his policies were going in the wrong direction. But Executive Council convener Lam Wing-kwong insisted the government is trying its best to serve the public and continues to listen to people's views and concerns. Businessman Alan Zeman, who backed Henry Tang against Leung in the chief executive election, urged everyone to give the embattled leader a chance.
It's not easy to be in government for many reasons at the moment. I think that there's room for improvement, although this government, to be fair, didn't make the problems. They inherited the problems from before. So I think they're trying their best.
Chief Secretary Carrie Lam promised the government will continue to take the public's views into account. She said the SAR government respects people's freedom to express their demands and will listen very carefully to their calls. The government released a standard statement echoing Lam and adding that consultations on the 2017 chief executive election will be held in accordance with the Basic Law and the relevant decisions of China's parliament. Hours before the anti-government rally got underway, Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying promised to consult the public on universal suffrage.
Once again, he offered no timetable, but he vowed to act with the greatest sincerity and commitment. The 16th anniversary of Hong Kong's handover to China began this morning with a flag-raising ceremony at Wan Chai's Bohemia Square, attended by dignitaries and other familiar faces in the city's political circles. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying was among those in the front row with former leader Tung Chee-hwa and the director of Beijing's liaison office Zhang Xiaoming. Despite the unsettled weather and the typhoon warning, hundreds of local residents and tourists watched the ceremony and some shook hands with the chief executive. In a cocktail reception that followed, the anti-government demonstrations seemed to weigh on Leung's mind as he called for unity and consensus on the polarizing issue of universal suffrage. Describing the implementation of universal suffrage as a major task, Leung promised that his government will formally start seeking public views on ways to go about it with the greatest sincerity and commitment. But once again, he did not give a timetable, only saying he would launch a public consultation at an appropriate juncture. And seemingly addressing today's mass rally again, he called on people to set aside their differences and to seek a consensus in an accommodating, pragmatic and peaceful manner. The chief executive also stressed that affordable housing is another major task and took credit for curbing soaring home prices. He acknowledged the problem of high rents in the commercial property sector, which he admitted were not conducive to Hong Kong's economic development. The chief executive vowed to increase the supply of land for commercial and industrial use. Having been on the job for exactly a year now, Leung drew attention to the report card he issued last week, in which he gave himself top marks for policies to address problems such as the shortage of infant milk formula in the SAR. He pledged that other long-standing livelihood issues like poverty and an aging society will be solved progressively.
Cheers.
Earlier, radical lawmaker Leung Kwok-hong and around 20 members of the League of Social Democrats were barred from Bohemia Square during the flag-raising ceremony. They were demanding the chief executive's resignation, and scuffles broke out as police stopped them from getting closer to the venue. Leung Kwok-hong also complained to reporters that police and Home Affairs Department officials had stopped him from attending the cocktail reception while the chief executive was giving his speech. The legislator said he was allowed in only after Leung had left. The radical lawmaker was taken away by security guards as he started shouting slogans calling on the chief executive to resign and complaining to journalists about being barred from the reception.